Greetings, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to today's afternoon Let's Talk session. Discussions of life, love, health, just in general. These discussions are just to have these conversations that intrigue our interests, give us answers, and may possibly give us healing. And today's discussion is about the journey of grief, from pain to power, grieving the loss of a child. And this was something that came up just for me now at this stage of motherhood, um, of having a child at 40 and just seeing life totally different. I think about that whole bond of what it's like with my child, and in that process, and hearing other women that I work with tell their stories when I'm working with them, either in counseling or coaching, that phase of grief. I'm dealing with the loss of a child. I do a lot of wound work, trauma work. And one thing, the reason why I wanted to have this talk was understanding the different types of grief, the different stages of grief, and how different people grieve differently. And that process of grieving from a child is a whole different process. And even though we have two beautiful souls, maternal parents, there are no fathers, but even in that process, it is a whole nother grieving process for the men. That I hope can tune in and also share the same experience. So for those who don't know me, I am Asha Sims, a holistic wellness practitioner and licensed clinician. And I work with a lot of women or just adults in general on their process of healing through a holistic way, analyzing metaphysical root causes and using different modalities from energy work, talk therapy, and other forms of work dealing with holistic approaches. So I like to have this forum as a way to engage the discussion. Often we live a mask, and we think we're the only ones out here dealing with things, or we lack the information and knowledge in order to move through certain processes. So I like to have this Let's Talk to bring topics to the table that sometimes people are not talking about, or we just need another view or insight on how to either move through this process or assist others in the process. So if those are tuning in, share it with others. You can always come back and look at this later. It will be recorded. You can tune in through YouTube on my page of Shakti Wellness. Share it, come back, look at it later, because I know it's going to be some great insight. So before I go to introduce the guests that I have, I just want to talk a little bit about the process of grief and helping people understand that there's many different stages of working through grief. And everybody is different. It depends on a lot of who you are, how you process feelings and emotions. It depends on your relationship with the person. Sometimes it depends on unresolved issues that never got resolved during that process. And sometimes it's really no rhyme or reason, it's just grief. And honoring those different stages are very important in moving into the process of healing. Because as I said before, it's never an ending point with grief, and for different people, the process. So we have the stage of denial that many go through. And that is like an initial stage to help us get over the overwhelming feelings of what has occurred. Is numbness, not sure how to move forward, how to go on. So you kind of just shut down and not want to deal with the true core issue of what you're dealing with. You go through phases of anger, and that anger of what has really happened. Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? And this is another important stage to help you process through the different emotions you have that may come up with that. And sometimes it may be angry at another person, trying to place blame. It could be anger at self. It could be anger at God. It's another process that you can go through during the stages. Bargaining, that's a whole nother stage of, please God, if this happens, or if I could get through this would never happen again. The negotiation of trying to have a certain sense of understanding of what has taken place to take away the pain or the loss that may come about from that. Stages of depression. Sometimes, often, we may not even realize we've gone into a stage of depression when you're dealing with grief. until you're really dead in it. And having support around you to help pull you out is very key to that. But depression is a part of the stage of grief. It is okay, again, if this is where you are, to honor that. And then there's also stages of acceptance. Acceptance is never really saying that the whole situation is okay, because I think in the situation of any lost child, life partner, parent, um, it's always a feeling of not really totally okay, but you learn to continue to live in the process and be okay in the now. And that looks different for different people. So hopefully today, as we talk to the different ladies that are tuning in, we can hear about their journeys to what has occurred and where they are in the stages of grief. I think that's important for other people to understand the reality and the transparency, that it's not always just okay just because we have a smile on our face. And when I speak in our and we, I speak as a community of women, because if one is in pain, we all are in pain. So in sharing the experience, help us become more empathetic to know how to address the needs of others. So I have three ladies on here that I'm going to start with. Arlethea. I just love the divine connections of my community, and the women that I have on this show today. So because there's different stages of dealing with grief that these three mothers have experienced, I'm going to bring on Natasha and introduce her to you guys. Hi, Natasha.
Hello, Miss Asha. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Share with us your journey, and how you wish to share, because I think it makes a very important impact on the work that you're doing with it, from the pain that you went through or still do, on how you've turned that into helping other women. So if you don't mind sharing us a little bit about your path of dealing with um, your situation in regards to loss of your child and the phase where you were in with the pregnancy.
Okay, so first of all, 2019 was crazy. Um, so I was pregnant at the beginning of 2019, and first quarter, and so I lost my baby at 4 months at on July the 1st. I had a daughter. Her name is Amari Siana. Amari means strength, and Siana means light. Amari means strength in Yoruba, and Siana means light. But it was a very difficult pregnancy. This wasn't my first. I have 18-year-old twins and a 13-year-old, so this wasn't like my first pregnancy, but it was way different. I was miserable, just to say, just to be honest. I was completely miserable. Um, I just hated it, and that was different for me because I've loved being pregnant. I couldn't wait to have another baby. And then I'm pregnant, right? And then I'm like, and I just wasn't in a good space. And then as I came to terms with, I have a human growing in me. Like I'm a small frame girl. I was showing, my baby was moving and kicking and just alive, even though I wasn't feeling all that great. And then I wake up one Sunday morning and I look different to myself. I looked at myself. I felt different when I woke up that morning, like before my feet hit the floor, my breasts weren't hurting. And every morning when I would wake up, I would, because I lay on my left side, my left breast would be like extremely painful to where I had to like ease up because of the pain. But this morning, there was nothing. And I was like, So I got up and I put on this blue maxi dress that normally shows my stomach like it was a tight dress, and my stomach looked way different. My belly button wasn't coming out anymore. And I'm a birth worker. I'm a doula. And in my practice, I've never experienced firsthand someone who's lost a baby. And I didn't know what to do. I was devastated. I went to my midwifery center, and they didn't confirm. I think they didn't want to tell me because everybody was kind of like supporting me, and they was just like, no, just we can see. And I'm like, I already know. I just know. And then I went to the emergency room and I had the worst experience ever. In having to process me losing my baby. And it was horrible. And I stopped working. Even during my pregnancy, it was like I couldn't function. I couldn't think. So my business wasn't progressing the way that I knew that it could because I couldn't focus. I just my pregnancy brain. And then after I had her, after I lost her, it was just like I'm miserable. I'm toxic. Um, and I'm going through a whole postpartum issue that people might think that you don't have because you miscarried, or because you have a baby that's stillborn. Like my breasts still produce milk. Like today, I'm back into working and I do postpartum support overnight as part of my job, and so I'm holding infants and my breasts are producing milk. Like the infants
Mhm.
are like trying to get to my nipples. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Right,
And that's
right.
something that people don't understand. Like that continues. And I didn't know, even though I'm a doula, I didn't know what to do in the hospital to ask for to to advocate for my baby. I had no idea what to do.
Mhm,
And I
mhm.
called my midwife up there and it was extremely horrible. Yeah.
And like in a
So right
situation like that,
now,
um, it, and when you were going through that loss, what would you say at that time, or if you could identify what was it that you needed that would have given you comfort? Was it just words? Was it just people understanding? Was it people just giving you education? What do you think at that moment of experience that loss and knowing that would have given you that comfort?
I guess acknowledgement. I'm a pretty private person, but I expect it, and it's definitely probably wrong of me, but I expected people to reach out because that's what I would have done. So I expected people to say, to hug me, to be there for me, to kind of, what do you need? How can we help you? Like even though I had to have my daughter cremated, like I have her in my chain, I have her in an urn. Like it's not like it's it never happened. And that's how I felt. Like people don't understand. Like I'm suffering. I'm crying every single day. I'm not eating. I'm miserable. I miss my baby moving. Um, and I just needed, I think, someone to come to me without me having to say what I needed. And that's kind of hard when people don't know what you need and you don't. Like I don't know what I needed. I don't know what I
Right.
needed. Other than I guess someone to kind of show me that they cared. I guess. I
Gotcha.
didn't definitely
Gotcha.
didn't feel the support. Yeah.
No, well, how long has it been since you had your loss?
July 1st.
July 1st. So
Yep.
when we talk about these stages of grief and where you are now, where would you say you are in that stage of how you're dealing with this and the stages of grief? What is it? And I know it could change from day to day.
It does. It does change
Mhm.
from day to day. I took a long time to have her memorial, just because I didn't know what to do. It was too hard on my brain. Um, and I didn't, it was like, do I want to do that? Even ordering her urn, I ordered it and reversed the order before it got to me. So I would order and then cancel because I'm like, I don't want to get it in the mail. Like I don't want to see my baby's urn. Like I don't want to get that. So I struggled with that. And even when I got the urn, I had it for a while before I opened it up and actually transferred her ashes. But I think the memorial kind of helped me to kind of it was like I felt like it was kind of like acknowledgement, like people um saying, I know that this is what you're going through and we're here for you, even though we don't know the words to say, we're here for you. And I think now, so I think sometimes I may be just a tad bit on a different part of it than other people because I know that my daughter sacrificed her life for me. And so
Mhm.
why still cry, and I'm still like, I'm so hurt, and I wish, like, right now she's supposed to be in my arms. I'm supposed to be nursing her right now. We're supposed to be loving on her, not talking about her not being here, not
Mm-hmm.
trying to live my life without her. And I think what gives me a little bit more comfort than it did at first was knowing that her life and my loss of her was necessary. Like, I was
Right.
sick. I had changed.
Mm-hmm.
The person that I was different, and now I feel better as a woman, but now I
Mm.
don't have my daughter,
Right.
so I think I'm
Right.
more on the end of trying to use this to empower, not to empower, but to walk alongside other women who are also
Other
having
women.
to experience this. Hmm.
And it's also one of those things when you do this as a profession, even, as a therapist, I always say that therapists need therapy too sometimes to help process things. So you doing this work and being on the other side of helping women through this process and then experiencing. I mean, like you said, we always have to look at the gain on the other side so that we don't stay in the hole, but the ability to share space with other women that may experience that, because as a doula you deal with all those different components. I think it's a beautiful thing for them to have that knowledge or maybe support that maybe you
Yeah,
didn't have at that time.
absolutely.
So do you specialize your doula work in all, or do you tend to focus more even being that doula for those who have lost a child? Because that's, how we have the birth doulas, we have death doulas. I think even in this aspect of helping somebody through a grief or a process, do you kind of focus with women in that aspect of healing, or what in your role as a doula?
Well, now I do. At first, it wasn't even like a consideration, not because I was just like, I don't want to deal with that, but I didn't, it was never brought to me. But because I'm more
Mm-hmm.
transparent, I found that transparency works for me. I shelter myself. I close up when I'm going through things. So no one knows that I need help, right? Because I haven't said anything. But I feel that posting and my shirts with my daughter's name on it, and me commenting and me saying, "Oh, I'm having a great day today," or "Oh, today is like the day from the pit of hell, and I can't stop crying and I'm miserable." Like, me being transparent and me being open helps. I've had so many people come to me, message me, text me, and say, "Thank you for being honest. Thank you for saying, for sharing your story, because I've been through that." I haven't been seeing people, or it may be going over my head, but I haven't been seeing people just say, "This is what I'm going through." And I think me just being able to say that helps other people to do that. And now, so unfortunately, I do have two families that I'm supporting through their pregnancy loss. One, further on in pregnancy, her baby was 8 months, and then someone that was close. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lost your baby at 2 months before you could actually see them on an ultrasound, or if your baby was in your arms. Like, that pain. My daughter died. Period. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
where it was. Like, my daughter died. I don't have my daughter. I
Right. You
have
feel
three
that.
sons and a daughter, right? And so it's still, in
Mhm.
my opinion, it wouldn't hurt any worse, or it wouldn't be any different than if one of my kids that I've been raising for 18 years passed away.
Right.
Like, it's the
Got
same pain. But I do
right.
now support women who have lost a child, and are confused and don't know where to go, and don't know how to navigate their 50,000 emotions.
Gotcha, gotcha. I thank you. I'm gonna come back to you with some other
Okay.
dialogue, and I'm gonna bring in another lady at this time. Thank you for sharing that, and I got some other questions for you when I bring you back on. Arlethea, I'm going to bring her on now, and this next. Hey, sissy.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing beautiful day. You're
Good.
shining bright this afternoon.
Indeed. Indeed. Yes.
Well, I thank you for wanting to be a part of this. I always like this, like I said, my divine sisters and my those around me. And Arlethea is like another one of my childhood friends. We
Yeah.
practically just grew up together as sisters right down the street. So her even sharing her story, because as we grow up as women, we have things that experience. So from once being a little girl to the women we are, and the journeys that we have, As
Indeed.
women, I think it's beautiful, even in this part, to have you share and know your journey in that aspect. So, tell us a little bit about your journey and your loss in this process, as much as transparent as you wish to be, that is safe for you.
Indeed. So for me, and first let me say, Natasha, God bless you, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And you are right, the pain is the same, no matter how old your child is. And it can be really overwhelming. But also there is light that is coming, and one day it won't hurt as bad. I remember the sting of being, just a few months out from losing a child, and the hurt, and the, like, where some days it arrests you, the pain just stops you in your tracks and you can't even keep going. It'll get better, I promise it will. For me, I lost my little girl Nyla, um 17 years ago. She was our first child. My husband and I had been married for about 2 years, and we were just really excited to have a baby. We learned that we were expecting her on Thanksgiving Day, and I had kind of been spotting. My period was late. I had been spotting a little bit, and then so I thought I wasn't pregnant, but then my period was just kind of weird. So I took a test and it was positive. On Thanksgiving Day, just so much more to be thankful for, And we went to the doctor. Everything was going well until about 16 or 18 weeks, and I had a triple screen, and my alpha fetoprotein was too high. So I started seeing a perinatalogist, which when I visited them, everything was fine. I was actually kind of glad to be able to see a perinatalogist because it meant that I got more ultrasounds than the average pregnancy. I got to see her like once every 3 or 4 weeks. And so that was really exciting. What's really one of the things that's so interesting to me is listening to your intuition. As a woman, we know, like Natasha said, when something just isn't quite right. And I had an appointment for the perinatologist. I had gone to my regular obstetrician just about a week before, but I had an appointment with a perinatologist, and I thought my appointment was on that. I thought it was on like that Tuesday, I think it was. And I went to the doctor. I was running late, and I got there and I was like, please see me anyway. And the nurse said, your appointment isn't until Thursday. And I said, oh, okay. But there was something in me that was like, I just needed to see the doctor that day. But I went ahead on home and I came back for my appointment on Thursday. And I was happy. I was feeling good. I felt great throughout that pregnancy. I had a lot of energy and I was just incredibly optimistic about everything. Um, but I got there, and once they started my ultrasound, immediately the energy in the room changed, and she started asking me questions like, "How far along have they told you you are? When are they saying you should expect your baby? How have you been feeling? When was the last time you felt your baby move?" Things like that. The doctor came in and told me that I would have to stay in the hospital until she was born. At that time, I was 27 weeks and a few days. Um, and there was not a lot of activity on ultrasound. They did a lot of things to try to induce activity, like, making noises, having me drink sugary drinks, things to try to get her to move. Um, and on Thursday, that following Thursday, I turned 28 weeks, and they said at 28 weeks, the survival rate jumps up to 98%. We need to get her out so that we can see what it is that she needs and give her that. So she was born by C-section at 28 weeks. We were still very optimistic. We thought 98% for sure. We won't be in that 2% that don't survive. So she was delivered, and they worked on her for 47 minutes. I really truly believe the doctors did absolutely everything they could. And a lot of why I feel that way is because when she was delivered, they worked on her right next to me. While the doctors were sewing me up, there was a team of neonatologists working with her right next to me. I was talking to her. My husband talked to her. He held her hand. We did everything we could to help her through the process. At some point, they said, we need to take her to the NICU. We can't give her what she needs here. So my husband went with her. He was allowed to videotape everything they did throughout that process. And at some point, I believe when she passed on, I feel like I remember someone coming back into the room and then putting me under. So I no longer knew what was happening. When I awoke in recovery, I kept asking for her, and they just kept saying the doctor will be in to speak with you. Eventually, once I was back in my room with my husband, and I should back up and say we lived in Colorado at the time. We did not have any family. But my mom, my dad, and my sister made it in just before I went into the OR to deliver her. So when I came back into my room, they were all there with me, which I was really, really grateful for. When they delivered the news to me that my child did not survive, it was difficult, but I also think it took several hours for it to really land on me what had actually happened, you know. Sometime later, they did bring her to me and they addressed her in a pink dress. She was very small. She was only a pound and 10 ounces. So this dress, even though it was a preemie dress, it was huge on her. And I remember it looked like she looked like an angel. The sleeves of the dress looked like wings, honestly. We held her for a long time. I just laid her in the bed with me. We took pictures. I look at those pictures now and I think, you look crazy. And I felt crazy, to be honest. But I was so grateful that the doctors and nurses honored her life. They brought me a Bible. They took her footprints the same way they would with any other baby. They did everything that they would have done with a couple who would have had the joy of taking their child home. One of the hardest parts, and I'm so grateful that we delivered where we did, because I do really feel like there was an understanding of what we were going through. One of the hardest parts of dealing with that loss was that I stayed in the hospital for a few days. And for that first day, I was still on the labor and delivery ward. So I was hearing babies cry. And that was really difficult. After that day, they moved me to another floor so that I would not have to hear that. And they told me that I could go home. But for some reason, I didn't want to. And I realized when I did go home, I realized that my hesitation in leaving was that I knew I was going to have to leave without her. So I stayed for a few days, and I was there on a Saturday. And I remember watching TV, really the TV just being on. I wasn't watching, but it just being on. And I remember a woman coming into my room and me thinking, like, oh my God, like, what do they want now? Just leave me alone, you know? And it was a lady coming to tell me about the Assistance with Grief program. And I listened to what she had to say, but I don't feel like I was really processing anything. She said what she had to say. She left some information for me on the bedside table, and she left. And I went home on a Sunday. The crazy part is that the Sunday that I went home was Mother's Day.
Wow.
I did not realize it was Mother's Day. Thankfully, I did not realize it was Mother's Day. But I went home. My mom, my sister, and my dad stayed for a couple of days. And then later, my daddy said, you know, I feel like we need to give y'all your space and let you do what you need to do as a couple. And at the time, I didn't appreciate that. But later, I really appreciated his wisdom in saying me and Tim needed to bond and work through things together.
Right.
So my parents went home, my sister went home, my husband and I were there together, and my husband was just amazing, honestly. One of the things that I do wish we had had at the time was more support for him, because I do feel like people really heaped love and support on me, but without realizing that as a father, he had lost his little
As a
girl too,
father.
you know.
Right.
And so we just spent a lot of time just sitting and holding hands, and just like there might be days when I would be having a really bad day and he would be the one to have to support me, and there were other times when he would be upset and I would really have to support him.
Each other.
Yeah, there was, as a mom, as a woman, I went through a lot of shame about, like, this is the one thing that you're supposed to be able to do as a woman that a man can't do. And damn, I can't even do this, that
Right.
was the way I felt. I realize now that's obviously not true, but that was the way I felt at the time.
Mhm.
As a man, my husband would say, I'm supposed to be the savior. I'm supposed to protect, but I couldn't protect her from this.
Right.
Um, so it was hard. It was hard to hear what he had to say, and I'm sure for him it was hard to hear what I had to say. But I was so glad that we had each other.
Each other.
Um,
I know.
and going to the doctor was difficult because you go to a gynecologist's office and it's pregnant women sitting in the office. I felt like everywhere I went, there were people with babies or pregnant women. Again, I was grateful for my doctors because when I did have to go to the doctor, they wouldn't leave me sitting in the waiting room. They would call me back to an exam room very quickly so that I didn't have to be around other pregnant women.
Mhm.
Um, I remember being in Home Depot. After I was able to walk a little bit better, I was in Home Depot, and a baby cried and my milk started coming in.
Mhm.
So I feel for Natasha and understanding, like, your body only knows that there was a baby in there, and now the baby is no longer gone, so no longer there. So you gave birth, so your body is still
Mhm.
prepared to nurture the baby the way you normally would.
Right.
And so just having my milk come in, and I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have breast pads on. So I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of the store. I got to go home.
Mhm.
There's so many psychological things that there's no way to prepare for it. Um, but about 2 weeks, it was exactly 2 weeks after giving birth. Um, I was at home alone, which was unusual because my husband didn't leave me by myself very often. But I was sitting at home, and for some reason on that day the weight of it just was really overwhelming. And I remember going to sleep one night, and before I went to sleep, I prayed and I asked the Lord just to let me go to sleep and not wake up.
Mhm.
And I was honest. One of the things you said at the top of the show was just anger, and sometimes
Right.
that anger being directed at God. And I was mad. I was so
Mhm.
mad at God. And I just was like, Lord, it's people who have kids who don't even want their babies, and here we are thinking we did everything right, and we're like ready and willing to welcome this baby into the world and give her all the love she can handle.
Right.
Why couldn't we keep her? And I
Right.
and I and I prayed and I said, God, I just don't want to wake up. And I remember saying, I don't care nothing about seeing Jesus. I want to see my baby. I want to hold my little girl.
Right.
Um, and thankfully, he did not grant my request.
Right.
Um, but the next day, I called the assistance with grief people, and I was really grateful that the woman had come into my room and shared that
Right.
information. And they were
Right.
just starting a new group of sessions that night, and so we went, and I really honestly feel like it saved my life and it saved my
Beautiful.
sanity.
Mhm.
And it was wonderful to be around other people who had experienced similar things. It was
Mhm.
good to know that I was not alone, and to
Mhm.
know that I was not abnormal and there was nothing wrong with me. It was
Right.
just this happen, and it happens way more frequently than we realize.
Then we realize a different form. Now,
Yeah.
where would you say now, being that this was almost 18 years ago,
Hmm.
and like I was saying, all these stages of grief, I hate to say, do you find yourself in the stage of acceptance, or do you even now still go through intense or those other layers of grief that you thought you had dealt with?
It comes and it goes, right? There are days when I look at my boys and I say, because I do have two teenage boys, they're 15 and 13, and they know that they have an older sister, and we acknowledge and celebrate her life and her birthday. That's not abnormal in our house. Um, and so there are times when I just am grateful for them, and I don't allow my grief over losing her to not let me enjoy life. But there's still days, like sometimes I can talk about it as just a fact of my life because it is. But then there are other times when the grief is real, when I feel it, and that sting is still there. You know what I mean? I do still wonder what my life would be like, how different things would be had I had a 17-year-old daughter in 2020. You know, what kind of person, how would she have shaped my life? In what ways would things be different? But in other ways, I'm so almost grateful for the way that it happened because I feel like it happened the way it was supposed to happen. Um, One of the things, yes, intense peace. One
Right.
of the things that we talked about in assistance with grief was not making great decisions, like huge life changing decisions while you're going through grief. But I kind of went against that, and shortly after, probably about a month after losing her. That's not true. That's not true. It might have been 4 or 5 months after losing her, I quit my job, and I pursued acting full time, which was something that I had always wanted to do and was just afraid to do. And I feel like she gave me the courage to do that, you
To
know?
live life. Yeah.
Yeah, to just live life,
Mhm.
because you realize how short life really is, and you not like tomorrow's not promised, and so you better get out here and do this thing that you really want to do while you still can.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for that because I don't really think I would have done it otherwise, honestly.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna pause you so I can bring on Alicia next, and then I just have some general questions for all three of you guys on your how you're processing currently and how you plan to use it to continue healing. So
Mhm.
thank you, Alicia. I'm gonna bring you back on in just a minute, and I'm going to bring on this other divine goddess. So hi, Alicia.
Hello. Thank you for welcoming me to your show. I'm happy to be here. I'm
Thank
honored.
you for being a part of it. Your post, it just hit me that morning when I saw it. And like I was saying, I hadn't seen your page, and then I just thought of the dialogues that me and you had initially with a lot of things through your birth that we had discussed. And I was just reading. I was in shock. I think I went through the 5 stages of grief when I was looking at the loss of your son. So thank you. I just, in your spirit is a lot. And I saw how you were still trying to, I think, educate others on this process, or even how to assist you in your healing journey through this
Hmm.
process as well. So if you, now that you're on the latter end, we've started with the miscarriages, the infant death. So you're on another stage of later on in years of dealing with having a bond with your son. If you don't mind sharing your story about your journey at this time.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia Monet. I was listening to the other women and listening to their process with pregnancy, and a lot of stuff really hit home for me. For me, I was dealing with insecurity about being able to give birth to begin with. So I was having all these things with shame because I felt like I was barren for a lot of years. I thought I was a barren woman. And so, and I was fine with that. I was really willing to sacrifice having children for the kingdom of heaven. I'm like, God, if this is your will, then so be it. And then I had shared my infertility issues with some people, and then it was this big rumor that I couldn't have kids. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, somehow, some way down the line, I tied womanhood into motherhood. So if I couldn't be a mother, if I couldn't give birth, then what good am I as a woman? And that's just where I was. So I prayed that I would be able to just know that I'm a real woman, just know that I can give birth. And the next time I had sex with my husband, I got pregnant. So I was at the time I was in a cult, a destructive mind control cult, a Christian cult. And I just felt like, Father's coming was imminent. So how selfish of me as a spiritual worker, as a gospel worker to give birth at a time like this when I should be saving souls. How selfish of me. So I had a lot of guilt with that. I had a lot of fear, like bringing a child into the world where the world is going to come to an end and all these different things. So I was dealing with a lot of that when Zion was conceived. So once he was conceived, I'm like, okay, well, now that he's here, Most High, like I just want to get to know him. I want to hear him talk. I want to get to know his personality. Like, please don't come right away. Then I'm like feeling guilty about asking God to hold off on his coming. That's been 2,000 years in the making. We're waiting for the grand finale. Hold up on the grand finale. I just want to get to know my baby real quick.
Right.
And so I dealt with a lot of guilt from that. So when he was 9 months old, I left the church and really went on an inward journey I was so depressed and went on an inward journey to like really find out well Most High, like, why did you leave me here? And like, what am I doing now? Now I'm a mother. The world's not going to come to an end tomorrow. So now I have to raise this child, and I'm actually in a marriage. I would have never done this if the world wasn't going to come to an end. I wasn't ready, but I was ready. I didn't know I was ready. So I had to readjust my mind. Like, okay, so now I'm a mom for the rest of my life. I got to go 80 years and I got to, raise a child healthily. And it was challenging because I was raised Christian. I was at church as a child. I had those morals instilled into me. But here I was, and I always knew when I have a baby, I already know how to raise them as far as the Bible is concerned. But here I am now where I'm not even in church and I have to raise my baby. Like, what spiritual principles am I going to teach him? That was a big deal for me. So with Zion, he was 7 years old when he passed. And when he was turning 3, like that year he turned 3 December 1st. And me and his father separated that September. So I was a single mom in a way, well, co-parenting, but at the time in my mind, I'm a single mom. I just left this cult. I just left my husband. Like, now I have a baby to raise on my own. I was a stay-at-home mom for 2 years. I just started working, so it was a lot of pressure, to raise him and still be able to give him everything that he needs. And I had a lot of fears around that. Like, my whole pregnancy and the whole time of me parenting my son was me working through a lot of fear, me deciding, no, I want to work on my womb. I want to heal my womb. And I want to work through all these fears that I have, and it was a very spiritual journey with me trusting the Most High. Okay. Like, I asked for this, I'm trusting you. Like, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to instill spiritual principles into my son? That was my main thing. How am I supposed to teach him how to worship you if I'm still learning? How am I supposed to teach him how to love you and not fear you like I was taught, And so that was a big thing with him and in my journey as far as raising him, And he had a lot of questions. He was my little guru. I feel like Zion, very special. He was born, first of all, his name is Zion, which is the place that God dwells while God is here on earth, right? It's the city where God is. It's God's people. And so Zion is where God dwells on earth in the flesh. So for me, I always felt like my baby was Christ from the get-go. When I was pregnant, even before I was pregnant, any being that passes through this womb is Christ, because that's all I'm birthing. And so that's where my mind was. And so with Zion, I always knew he was special. And all throughout his 7 years of life, he was always teaching me spiritual principles and things that I needed in order to get out of my depression and in order to truly love myself and to recognize my power as a spiritual being and to have faith and trust in God. So his whole journey was a journey of strengthening my relationship with the Most High and strengthening my love in myself and just overall unconditional love, period. So because he was living with his father by the time he passed, when he was 5, he moved to his father's house because he started school. And we didn't want him to go to school in the LAUSD because it's horrible. We wanted him to go to a better school district. So me and his dad already knew that when he was born, like he's gonna go to school over here. So when the time came, he moved with his father. And for me, that was the hardest thing ever. I felt so much guilt and shame because as a mom, you're supposed to be the one to take care of your kid. Like I haven't heard, my parents were married, and I haven't heard too many stories of, boys or children, period, living with their fathers because of my ignorance. And mostly, like, most of the women that I know, their children are with them. So that was a big deal for me. Like, what kind of mother am I? And like feeling like not good enough as a mother because he lived with his father. And so me and Zion started practicing telepathic communication, So like when I'm not with you and you miss me, you could just think about me and send me love and mommy will feel it, and vice versa. When I'm missing you, we don't always have to call each other and talk. We can talk from our hearts and we can feel it. So we would practice that. And when we would get back together, we would ask each other, did you feel this? Did you feel that? And just different things. We were just learning about that and manifestation together. So by the time he was 7 years old, right before he passed, he was going through this major shift where he was trying to understand science and magic, as we called it, which is the spiritual realm. How do you explain? How do you know your ancestors are really there, mommy? How do you know angels are real? Because I'm always, thank you, ancestors. Thank you, Most High. Thank you, angels. Okay, look it. Our ancestors showed us this. I'm always talking like that with him. And he's like got to a point where he started to question all those things. So about 2 weeks before he passed away, he asked me, mommy, what happens when you die? And I was like, he was like really obsessed with death. And I was like, well, honey, you never really die. However, we call physical death. And that's when your spirit leaves your body. So when your spirit leaves your body, your physical body dies and it decomposes back into the ground, but your spirit lives forever. And he was like, okay. So I didn't think nothing of it because he's always asking these spiritual questions. And then right before that, he was so excited. He had this epiphany and he's like, mommy, I'm like, what is it? He was like, science proves magic, mommy. You could prove magic through science. And he was like so excited about it. I'm like, okay, baby, like, cool. I'm glad you came to that epiphany. Like, I'm happy because I'm all woo woo. You know what I mean? Like, if science doesn't prove it, it's not a big deal for me. As long as my experience confirms it, I'm good. So this was a very, he was going through that. So I was in San Francisco, and this day that he had his accident, I had all these plans in San Francisco, and I was melancholy. I just wanted to make these waist beads. So I made waist beads, and it was my first pair of waist beads that were all crystals. They were all packing power. I had mostly hematite, moonstone, and lepidolite, and some red jasper. And so I made those waist beads, and it was time to go. And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. And, I was like, I just feel melancholy, and I don't know why. And then 15 minutes later, his dad called me like, hey, Zion's in critical condition at the Children's Hospital. You need to get here right now. Where are you? When are you coming home? And I'm just like, what's going on? He's like, a Murphy bed fell on his head and he's in critical condition. I need you to get here now. And then he hung up the phone. He might have said, I said, what's going on? He might have said, I don't know right now. I got to go. And then hung up the phone. And my fear response kicked in and I had to pee immediately. So I went and peed and then immediately went to the altar, covered my head, lit some sage, and I went into prayer and meditation and chanting right away. And immediately my baby came to me. Mommy, I'm scared. Where are you? Mommy, I'm tired. I need you. Mommy, where are you? Mommy, come. And he always says that, like, that's his thing. Mommy, come. Like, whenever he's going through something, I know it's serious when he tells me, Mommy, come. Like, it means something is serious. Like, even if it's like something fell or like he needs tissue, that's an emergency, but still it's always Mommy, come, So I'm in meditation. I hear Mommy, come. I know it's serious. He's like, I'm tired, Mommy. I'm scared. And I immediately started praying. I sent angels to encamp around him and the Most High to protect him and the ancestors to go and take care of him until I can get there, to make a way for me to get there. And I started chanting, and immediately I was angry. I mean, anger from the depths of my soul rose up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like when he's in my care, if he gets a scratch, it's like, well, you could have prevented that. If he gets a mosquito bite, well, why was the windows open? You know, or a spider bite or whatever. And so, and maybe I'm making it extra, but to me, in my mind, with my own insecurities about what kind of mom doesn't have their kid and all these other things, any type of criticism or any type of anything coming from my in-laws or his father was magnified to me. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like if he gets sick or anything in my care, it's a big deal. And now he's in critical condition in their care. So I was so angry, like, what the fuck? And I'm in here in meditation and all of this, angry. And the Most High is like, that energy is not going to help your son right now. You need to forgive. You need to burn that in the fire. So I was chanting to burn that in the fire and like release it and let it go. And then guilt came up because about 2 weeks before he passed, I remember me and his dad having a tough conversation. And I was so mad. I was like, oh, if it wasn't for Zion, I wouldn't even fucking talk to you. Like, oh, I didn't say that. Oh, but I felt it. I felt it in every fabric of my body. I felt it. And immediately after I got done with the chanting the anger away, then the guilt came up. Like, you said, you know, that if it wasn't for Zion, you wouldn't talk to him. And now look, and I'm like, that's not what I meant. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I felt so guilty. Like, I need to be careful with my words and my feelings and my emotions. And I was just crying and just, you know, upset and feeling guilt. And the Most High was like, that energy is not going to help your son right now. You need to forgive yourself. So I had to chant to forgive myself just so I can, you know, deal with what was going on. So immediately when I was in meditation and chanting and prayer for like 30 minutes. And when I came out, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta get on the plane. I need to get on the next plane. I had to go an hour away to get there. And Sean wasn't answering my calls. Sugar's father wasn't answering my calls. And I was just all nervous. So I called his mom and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And are you okay? She's like, no, I'm not okay. And I'm like, do you know what's going on? She's like, no, I don't know. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll talk to you later. Bye. And I'm just like, why? I took it personal. Like, why is she talking to me like this? Like, and what's going on? Like, and I called the hospital. They don't have his name. They're like, he's not here. And I'm just like, okay, well, I need to know what's going on. So it was just a very meditative state of being. And Sean called me back and told me what happened, told me that a Murphy bed fell on his head, he didn't know it crushed his skull at the time. And, you know, his eyes slipped in the back of his head, blood started gushing out, and he had to, you know, breathe into him. And I'm over here like, first of all, I can already feel everything. When people talk to me, I'm empathetic. I could feel what they're going through. So I'm just like, oh my God, this is why I've been feeling like this. Oh my God, like all day. And they had to resuscitate him. He had to, where he was in the Hollywood Hills, the ambulance couldn't make it up to him. So they had to drive him down to the ambulance, to meet the ambulance to get him to the hospital. And in the hospital, he's in the ER in critical condition, and they can't perform surgery. I didn't know all this, but he told me all this stuff, and they had to resuscitate him 4 times. And I'm just like, oh my God. Immediately before all of this, before I was on my way to the airport, I called my parents and was like, I couldn't even talk. I was like, Zion's in critical condition at the hospital, catching a flight home. I gotta go. My dad's like, what happened, honey? I'm like, I don't know. I gotta go. And I hang up the phone. I'm quiet the whole time. I get home around 10 at night. My flight lands. My cousin brings me home. Sean is like, it's not any better. I call to check in. It's not any better. Bring some toys. And I'm thinking, why would I bring toys if he's in critical condition? He can't play with toys. What toys do I bring? He has Beyblades and Pokemon cards. These things require a lot of work. Like, what am I supposed to bring? And so I'm sitting in his room, standing, looking around like, I don't know what to bring. And I'm there for like a cool minute, just stuck. like thinking like, well, is he going to be able to talk? Is he going to be able to move? Like when he comes out of this, like what is he going to be interested in? Is he even going to have his brain functioning? Like, and all this stuff is going through my mind. Then his mother texts me, where are you? So I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta go. So I get to the hospital around 11:30. I know that because my birthday is 11:30. I go in and my baby's head is just swollen. He doesn't even look like himself. And I'm like, mommy's here. I was in San Francisco and I just met a group of people who are very well connected. They knew the doctors in LA. They were the woman was very helpful. She started a prayer chain and all this and told me about reflexology and how as soon as I get there, because it's a head trauma, to push on his toes and don't be afraid and all this stuff. So I was like practicing reflexology while I was on the plane, like reading up on everything. And like, so when I got there, I immediately went to that and started talking to him and all of this. And he's like, Mama, you don't have to use words to talk to me. And I'm like, okay. So I'm just doing the reflexology and it was such a powerful 5 days in that hospital with my baby. We were telepathically communicating the whole time. He's like, Mommy, I'm scared. What do I do? I'm like, I've never been through this before. When I came through the hallway, his family was lined up. And I just had a dream the night before of his family. His dad has a big family being lined up in like a cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I walked down the hall, my dream, I was like, oh shit, like this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And in my dream, one of his relatives was talking about my parenting. I was so very insecure about my mothering because I'm like, first of all, like I told you, when mom doesn't live with their child, I'm not even financially in a position to be able to do this on my own and all this stuff. So, and another family member was like, we love you, you know, you're always a part of the family and all this in my dream. So when I hit the corner and I saw that, I just immediately thought of my dream the night before. And I'm like, what the fuck? So while I'm there with my baby, he's like, Mommy, what do I do? I'm scared. You know, Mommy, I'm so tired. Mommy, I'm really tired. And Mommy, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you crying, Mommy? Everybody else is crying. Do you want me? And I'm like, of course I want you. You know, I don't know what to do. I want you to do what you want to do, baby. I've never been in this situation. We just got to trust each other through this, you know? So it was one of those types of things. And then once the doctors called me in the back, I just started screaming. I just broke down and just started screaming, like a loud scream for a minute. And they told me his condition. And I realized that his body, he couldn't be in his body to wait around. So I had to go back in there and say, baby, I need you to leave your body. You can't be in your body. Your body is painful. Your body cannot sustain your life. If you want to go back into your body after your body heals, that's okay. And so he's like, I'm scared. I was like, I know, me too, but you got to breathe into me and we got to work through this fear together. And so I was like, you trust me? He's like, I trust you. He's like, I trust you too. I need you to breathe into me and leave your body. So at the time he was taking breaths on his own, you know, but it was like he was struggling to take those breaths, you know? And and so the last thing he told me before he left his body was, Mommy, take care of Daddy and Grandma for me. I was like, okay. He's like, promise? And I was like, promise. And he left his body and he's like, Mom, I'm still here. I'm like, great. All right. You know, so I'll go into more detail about that in my book that I'm writing about it. But afterwards, it was a bit much because that whole time I was in the hospital, I had the crystals. Crystals have been a big help. The crystals helped me. The waist beads that I made helped with blood circulation, which my baby needed and which I needed. It helped with grounding. It helped with intuition and telepathy. It helped with all of these things. So I was able to pull from that energy in order to be calm. It helped with emotional turmoil and being able to emotionally work through things and stuff like that, and forgiveness, and being able to work through anger and tough emotions and resentment and things like that, which I totally needed. So it's still a process. But something that was amazing is throughout it all, the only person that I wanted to be around and be with, which I would have never thought in 1,000 million, 100 trillion years, is my ex-husband.
Right.
I just wanted to be with him. I just felt like that's it. Like nobody else can understand. And nothing even mattered. Not the whole 10 years, the 15 years I've known him, the 8 years or 7 years we had Z. None of that mattered. Nothing that we went through mattered. I just felt safe and we had comfort in each other. And that was the most important thing. And it's really deep because after the whole situation, I mean, he still talks to me. And I
And
feel
I
like
was
that's
going to
the
ask you that in general, and not cutting you off, but I was even curious with you, Natasha. You know, as parents, we have a cord to our children. You know, even in this physical and this spiritual realm. Do you ever hear your child speak to you? Do you feel that she has left, Natasha? And I know sometimes that's part of that healing process on how you process that or your spiritual viewpoints. But do you still feel that same connection at times, Natasha?
I do. Some days are easier. Some days I honestly I'm numb. I don't have any feeling around it. But some days I do. I have her shrine or her altar set up like right near my bed. So I see it every morning when I get up, and I see it throughout the day, and I see it before I go to bed at night. And it makes me feel really, really close to her, and I'm always talking to her as if she can hear me. She can, but as if we are like me and you are talking. So I'm always like talking to her. I always feel like I just wish I knew what you look like, like her dad saw her. But it's like I just wish I
Mhm.
knew what you look like, and I wish, I don't know. I I'm always wondering how she sounds. I'm always wondering what she looks like, and
Mhm.
how thick she is and her hair. I'm always wondering, and I think I mean, that's probably gonna always happen. I'm gonna always wonder. Um, but her dad is more spiritual, and he says like he sees her, and I haven't yet. And it breaks my heart for real, because I would love to just be able to say, "Oh, I just saw my baby." Like I feel her,
Mhm.
but I don't like that visualization I'm longing for. I haven't had yet.
Gotcha. And all that probably comes in time, and I really think you two going connecting outside of this can really help each other
Mhm.
with some
Mhm.
things in that process. Spirit keeps telling me y'all are gonna bond to help with those different stages. Cause I was just thinking you had your loss in July. Is that correct,
Yes,
Natasha?
July 1st. Yep,
Yours was
July
in
1st.
August, correct, Alicia?
August 20th.
So that portal of time right there is
Yeah.
then significant. I think that's even in the healing process of grief and looking at things either from a different spiritual perspective. I would say grief sometimes depends on even your belief process or your that has
Mhm.
instilled in you sometimes will determine how you even grieve or process. But it
Yep.
does sound like you guys have looked at this from, I say true healing comes when, even though you're hurting pain, you can see the blessing or the spiritual purpose out of whatever the exchange, whether you look at death as the end or the death as rebirth. Because you just telling your story, at least I got goosebumps. I was like, your son was here for a purpose. That purpose
Mhm.
only,
Yeah.
even though it was not long term, if you don't look at life as an end when that physical body, then it gives you a certain sense of peace to know he's still around.
Right.
But his life contract it met its purpose and all of that. So I want to thank, and I know I was listening to your stories, and we can continue more, but I do want to thank both of you for sharing. Real quickly, if Natasha, how can people find you if they need your doula services? Is there a contact? They reach you on Facebook? How would you wish that to go about it?
Yes. So you can reach me on Facebook, just my first and last name, Natasha, Nytasha Stevens. And I'm also Stevens, and I'm also on IG as RVA Hypnobirth.
Hypnobirth. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can
And
call me too.
gotcha. And Alicia, you have a book coming, dear?
Yeah, I'm writing a book about this because I feel like we have been so disconnected from spirit that we don't realize that our transition loved ones are right here communicating with us. And for
Mhm.
so long, I've been masking my spiritual gifts and masking these things out of fear of rejection, fear of being called crazy, fear of being put on medication. And spirit's like, baby, you got to talk. Everybody experiences these things, but they're afraid, just like you're
Mhm.
afraid. You need to be able to talk
Mhm.
about these things and help people to realize they can still communicate and, be a bridge between people and their transition loved ones, because this is real. You can't hide anymore.
Right. Gotcha.
You gotta share. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm definitely writing a book about the experience, the telepathic experience and psychic experience and spiritual experience of this whole thing, because Zion lives, and I hear him whenever I need to hear him. He's always around. He's always communicating through everything, through the music, through things that are inside jokes and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so that's the thing. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm human and then I still feel the pain and
Mhm.
then I still experience the different parts of grief, and they're interspersible. I can go from anger to acceptance in a matter of an hour. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Or minutes. I can
Mhm.
go back to the loss of it. You know what I mean? And like, oh, I'm never gonna hug my baby. We're never gonna talk about, his birthday plans. To, you know, feeling acceptance again. Like, it's just, it comes in waves.
Mhm.
And that's just the reality of the situation. It's
Right.
still so new, you know what I mean? Like, I spent 7 years with him. So
Right.
it's like brand new. It hasn't
Mhm.
even been 2 seasons yet. It's only
Right.
been 5 months. So the big thing though that I took away from this, because spiritually and mentally I'm good. You know what I mean? I get it.
Mhm.
However, my body is still facing the
Adjusting without
stress
that
and the shock
physical.
of it all. My
Mhm.
body systems shutting down little by little, because
Mhm.
my body's in a heightened state of stress
Right.
and of shock. So cortisol levels are through the roof. And when
Mhm.
cortisol levels are there, the body doesn't know if it's real fear or perceived fear.
Right.
So it takes
Trauma.
energy from the other body systems to be able to protect me so I can fight or flight.
Mhm.
So my immune system, my reproductive system, my all my system, my digestive system,
Mhm.
my all my systems are taking its toll. So I have to be sure to take my herbs, even when
Right.
I don't want to. Take
And
my herbs,
care.
and make sure I'm
Mhm.
getting the nutrients and minerals that I need,
Mhm.
because my body doesn't feel like going to go hike or going to go walk like I used to, or stretching. I don't feel like it.
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
my sleeping patterns are all over the place. Some days I'm like, I just want to sleep, and some days I can't sleep. I'm up to 5 and I go to sleep and wake up at 7. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
my body is all out of whack,
Right.
because it's not on a regular schedule. So my body's like, what's going on?
Right.
And I don't know. The doctors are like, we can't really do anything for you. You
Mhm.
just your body has to come out of that stressful
Stay.
space.
Right. Right. And I
So
think
that's
that's the
what
thing with
really.
grief, right? People don't realize that it affects you in different ways. It's going to affect your body. It's going to affect your mind. It's going to affect, your thought processing and everything, and how you can look fine, but all those other parts are kind of out of sync at that point in time. So, I thank you guys for being a part. And Alicia, wait a minute. I think tell them how to reach you or your YouTube channel. I know you had some video blogs. Tell them quickly how to get in contact with you.
Okay, so you can reach me at on Facebook. I have a page. My ex-husband and I started a page, Transcending Zion. Transcending Zion, Zion. We also have a YouTube page where we're basically just videotaping our healing process and the things that are come up and how we're dealing with it, even though we're not together. We're supporting one another, and we want to allow our healing journey to be a blessing for others and maybe encourage others. So we've been called to share that. So we're sharing that on YouTube and on Facebook. You can email me at transcendingzion@gmail.com as well. That's everything Transcending Zion. That's how you can reach me and follow the story and things like that.
All righty. Well, I thank you, dear ones, for your stories. I guess just before we close out, if there was one thing that you feel could have helped your grieving process, if there was one thing that you may need from others or spiritually or one thing, what would it be? So others, is there really a way that others know how to help you grieve? I guess I could say that you, until you experienced it, really can say. Or is it really an answer for it? Because I think it's day by day.
Yeah, because like I said, I don't like today. I'm gonna need plenty of hugs today. I know that,
Mm-hmm.
but tomorrow, I might not want to talk to nobody about it. I might
Gotcha.
have a whole attitude tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't. That's why I said in the beginning, like I probably wasn't a good friend, even though I needed good friends. I probably wasn't a good friend going through it because I was angry and pissed the hell off, and I felt like nobody understood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I guess it's meet people where they are and understand that today she might can handle it, or the dad might can handle it today, but tomorrow they might be basket cases. They might cry all day. They might can't eat. Like, and just hold a space. Sometimes it's okay to just be present and say nothing.
And be present. And I like that. I like that.
Yes.
Alicia, you agree?
Yes. So that's a thing too. Like, um, just don't expect me or anybody to want to talk. You know, don't take anything I say personal because some things
Mhm.
trigger me. Somebody asked
Mhm.
me if I was happy, and I'm like, about what? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
what kind of question is that? When I didn't realize, I used to ask people that all the time. Are you happy?
Right.
But
Right.
like, don't ask me if I'm happy. Like, what kind of question is that? Like, in the moment, sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and like, how are you or what happened and all this. Like, I don't want to talk. I
Mhm.
think that it would be good. You can help people by just being present and not expecting anything from them and
Mm-hmm.
not expecting to have an answer or a cure or something to give like that.
Right.
Sometimes your presence is just enough.
Got you.
And
Got
don't take it personal, whatever comes out of my mouth. I'm not intentionally or maliciously, attacking people or popping off, but
you. Mm-hmm.
I do like snap
Right.
when I'm
Right.
triggered by certain things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
I just go in, like I go in, and then afterwards I'm like, damn, that was a little extra,
Right. Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
look, I didn't mean it like that. I meant what I said, but I don't really
Mhm.
mean it like that. So
Right.
don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal and be present and meet people where they are. I like that. I like
Hmm.
that. Thank you, beautiful ones. If there's any
Thank
other one I can
you.
do of
Thank
support
you.
you guys, I love you. I'm here. I appreciate you. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. You guys have a beautiful day.
You too.
You
All
too, sis.
right.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.